If you have it installed, cool. If you don't, that's okay too. I might record another intro video if this audio isn't really syncing up. All right, so the first thing you guys are going to see when you open Blender is this interface here. And to me, when I first started, I was like, this is so much. It's too much for me to handle. I'm like, I'm going to have an anxiety attack. But you can see down here, it has these different sections. It's like general 2D animation. You can do it at sculpting, VFX, which is kind of our deal. At first, I want you just to use the regular interface here. So I'm just going to, this is really what we're seeing here is general. I'm going to click in there. Once you get into this, you immediately want to save off the project file because that actually defers crashing is if you lock it in place. If you just start working and you don't save it, it doesn't it won't anchor it to anything. And if you work off of a hard drive or like an external, save it to your personal drive and then copy it over. Because Blender is very resource intensive. So in respect to the way I use the interface, you always want to go to edit and then preferences here. And then I generally go to input and where's that at? Navigation. Let's see. So a couple things. If you don't have a numpad on the side of your laptop, you want to turn on emulate numpad. And what that'll do is as I'm going through it, it'll automatically give you options to use this numpad on the side, which I generally use for camera angles and stuff. I do have a numpad on the side of my computer. The next thing is for navigation, key mapping. You want to turn on tab for pie menu, and that's your tab key. So what this allows you to do is when you turn this on, you can actually hit tab and it'll give you those options that I mentioned earlier. Like I can go to weight painting, I can go to, a lot of this is going to be word salad, vertex painting, texture, or edit mode. I can edit this cylinder here. Object mode. Up at the top here, we have layout, we have modeling. This is like a modeling view. These are just different views. Sculpting, for people who you want to learn to do digital sculpting, this is important because if I'm creating, say, an exact copy of this person here, and I want to put them in my film like a CG thing, that's actually done in View for digital sculpting. UV editing, texture painting, animation is another track where it shows you how to animate. Compositing is something that we're going to use in this semester, and that's where we're compositing that spaceship. So these are just different views. In the initial layout, what you're looking through is a camera. So this is a default editor camera or view camera. Well, what if you want to create a camera that flies through your scene like in movies, right? Well, they give you one by default here. You can also create your own camera. So up in the right-hand corner, you'll see there's a camera here. If I hit the delete key on my keyboard, I can delete it. I can also, for the Mac people, because for some reason, I don't know why they do this with the Mac, they don't let you just hit delete. You have to hit the X key, and then you have to select delete. If you want to create a camera, you can go up here to objects, and this is where they have all this kind of this stuff in here, or if you go to object. Oh, sorry, we want to make sure we're in the add section. Sorry, add is like mesh is these different geometric objects. Again, some of this is going to sound like word salad, but down here you can go to camera and it'll add a camera. Now you're not seeing it because it's kind of embedded in this box, but you can move your camera around by clicking on this here, which is the move tool. And you can move this camera. Now, how do you look inside of this camera? You click this button here. I know I'm going pretty fast, but I'm also doing it because I'm recording it. And by the way, a lot of this is also embedded into these videos, which are right here. So if you feel like I'm going way too fast, like in the lessons here, I cover this kind of stuff in here too. So this is just kind of a rehash. I hope you don't feel like, well, why don't I just watch the videos? I'm going to always try to give you more in the class than in the videos, okay? So if you click this, we can actually look inside of the camera, and I can actually animate this like a film. So I can press this lock here and zoom out, and now I'm actually moving around this camera. So if I scroll my wheel in and out and zoom, here's the other thing. How many of you don't have a mouse with a wheel on it or use a mouse at all? It's okay if you don't. My last animation class, there's only like 1 or 2 people who even had a mouse. Go buy a mouse, even a cheap one. You'll need it for this program. Okay, to pan inside of this, you hold shift and you middle mouse click. To zoom in and out, you scroll the wheel. And then to rotate around an object, you click your middle wheel in. Again, don't expect you guys to retain all of it. Once you have your camera set up like this, you can actually make your film. So I'm going to unlock this, and then I'm going to click in the view, and now you can see it set my camera onto what I was looking at, which is this object. All right, so we kind of talked about this already. It has an entire slew of things like cameras, it has movement, it has stuff like this. You can actually create geometric objects to test things, right? So, for example, we have this cube here. Inside of video games or movies or whatever, the way physics works is by using something called a rigid body. So down at the side here, you'll find these different tabs. One is called physics. You're going to see here, there's force field, collision, cloth, soft body, fluids, rigid bodies, right? This week is all about rigid bodies. Later, you're going to see that we do stuff like create fire. And then and this is all using that same physics section, or like we're going to create like a waterfall where like water pours down the side of a building. You see how there's like these water particles? See if I can get a nice render there. Also, like we can create slime like in Ghostbusters inside of a room. So like this is a 3D scan of an actual room. All of these different VFX are located inside. Oh, do I have multiple copies of this open? What's this one? Are located here inside of this physics panel. So what I want to show you is what you do is you create, like this week is all about bouncing objects and things falling. It's about gravity. That's the theme of this week's assignment. So I'm going to go ahead and click on rigid body. And now when I press play, you'll notice this cube will fall. It now has physics. And I can actually control that physics. And that's by clicking on this little guy here and turning on a rigid body. Well, what if I want to make another object that's anchored in place that the object will bounce off of, like the ground, right? Like, well, I can go to add here, and I can go to mesh, and I can create another cube. And remember, we have this move tool on, and you click on these arrows, they're called axis, to move this around. So say I want to make this cube, like it hits this cube and it rolls off. I can add another rigid body there, and I can make this type passive. And now when I press play, you can see it hits that cube and it falls. Cool. Like what if we want to make a floor, right? I can take this same cube. I'm going to hold shift and press the left arrow so I snap back to 1. And I'm going to grab my scale tool here and I'm going to just make a floor. I can also hit like S and scale this up and scale this and then just go back to move. So there's a little bit of 3D modeling. Remember we had those soldiers were walking? Well, those soldiers started off as a cube and then started to slowly model that cube into a person, which is like, so anyway, so here's this. So I'm going to go ahead and press play. And you can see now it falls on that surface and it serves a plane. In the tutorials, we get like, so this is just kind of a basics of the interface and stuff.